After being embarrassed 5-0 by Fulham at Craven Cottage yesterday, David Moyes addressed the low energy levels of his players, implying that was a big reason as to why we got beat at Craven Cottage. First of all, he hit out at the Premier League scheduling, suggesting there's no reason we couldn't have played on Wednesday night. Obviously, Fulham played and thumped Nottingham Forest on Wednesday. We played on Thursday, thus giving Fulham an advantage with that additional day's rest prior to our game yesterday. He also spoke about how the second half against Spurs took out of the players, that as well as the illness within the squad, meant that there was a fatigue issue with the players and we struggled to get back into the game as a result of it. Now, he didn't say we lost because of the fatigue, he didn't say we went behind because of it, but we struggled to get back into it because the energy levels of the players weren't there. I completely agree with everything he's had to say on that as well. I agree with the scheduling, I agree with the fatigue. Now, if you're new around here, please do subscribe to Hammer's Chat. It's free, takes 2 seconds. And also, if you enjoyed the video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up underneath it. Also takes 2 seconds, also free, helps out this channel, helps out this video, makes me feel a little bit happy as well. So thank you very much for anyone that does so. In regards to the scheduling, completely agree with every word he had to say. Did Fulham have an advantage playing 24 hours prior to us? Yes. Case closed. We move on. We have to. There's nothing we can do about it except complain, and he's perfectly entitled to do so. But it's out of his control. But it's something that's bang in his control is the fatigue of these players. After the loss yesterday, I thought, please do not bring up the fact that the players were tired. And he did. Now, granted, he didn't say it's the only reason or the main reason we lost yesterday, but he certainly strongly implied that I had a big part to play in the defeat. And I agree with him. It did. A big part of the reason we lost yesterday was down to the fatigue of the players. But he's responsible. He's almost complaining about a problem that he's created. It's like me going out in my back garden right now and digging a hole, and then tomorrow going, there's a massive hole in the back garden, what's that? But I created it, I dug that hole. He's created a situation where the players are tired, and he's complaining that the players are tired. Now, obviously, there's an illness thing going around as well, which doesn't help, but I don't believe that we're the only team in the Premier League with such an illness. And it comes down to subs, lack of subs, lack of rotation. It's on his head. It's a domino effect, and it's not the only thing, because the lack of subs, there's a domino effect within the domino effect, if that makes sense. I'm going to do my best to explain. Stick with me. I'm a bit ranty, but he wound me up a lot. It's 24 hours later, and I'm still wound up by it. Anyway, let's take the last two games, let's take them separate. Spurs and Crystal Palace. Two completely contrasting scenarios that we've got, but the exact same subs were made. I mean, that on its own is silly, isn't it? At home to Crystal Palace, when we need a winner, and away to Spurs when we're hanging on to a win, the exact same subs were made at the exact same minutes as well. I mean, that shouldn't even be a thing, but regardless, let's take them in isolated games. So Spurs on Thursday, I understand, completely get, and you know what? I completely agree why he didn't do any subs. Like I said, there's a domino effect here, we'll get on to it. But he made one sub. Fornals came on for Kudus. And I think Kudus should have went off 10 minutes prior. He looked absolutely knackered. But I completely get and agree with Moyes as to why he didn't want to change it. The players were playing fantastic. Even in the 90th minute, Jared Bowen was throwing himself in the way, blocking shots. We were superb. Great win. Completely get why he didn't do subs that game. Spurs, though, there's no excuses. It's almost unforgivable. 1-1 against Crystal Palace. We didn't make a sub till the 87th minute. In the meantime, prior to that, James Ward-Prowse was playing left midfield. There was no reason for Edson Alvarez to be on the pitch. We weren't necessarily playing well. Thomas Souček wasn't getting into the box, so you could have subbed Ward-Prowse. Should have subbed Alvarez earlier. Could have subbed off Thomas Souček. We had Bowen on the right and Kudus on the left. With supply lines, no one in the middle. Paqueta was sort of in a false 9 position. We need a goal at home to Crystal Palace to win the game. Crystal Palace, who are offering no threat at this point, they're only interested in getting the point. We've got no striker. Then in the 87th minute, we finally changed it. We brought on Pablo Fornals. We still had no striker. We finished the game with no actual striker on the pitch of that game. So while I understand why he's hesitant against Spurs, what I can't do is understand why he doesn't do it against Crystal Palace. Now, in between the two games, the Spurs one and the Fulham one, he spoke about how the fringe players need to take their opportunities. They're not given one. Yesterday, you cannot tell me that was opportunities. He was stat padding. Do you know when players play it sideways all the time to get their pass percentage up? I'm not saying that they do that, but if they did, it's stat padding. David Moyes is essentially stat padding his substitutes yesterday, making them for the sake of making them, because even they didn't make sense at halftime at Craven Cottage. But this is the domino effect. Now, when we talk about opportunities, look, Fornals, 3 minutes against Spurs, he's not going to do anything. against Crystal Palace, what's he going to do? Now, granted, the game prior, Bakatopola, he started and he was rubbish. But he played right wing. He's not a right winger. Is that really an opportunity? I would argue it's not. When Danny Ings plays for us up front, is that an opportunity for Danny Ings playing a system that doesn't suit him? I'm not sure. Maxwell Cornet came on against Bakatopola and took his opportunity. Crossed it in, got the winner, happy days. What's the reward? He's not even in the squad against Crystal Palace. Then against Spurs, he's on the bench, unused. He's on the bench against Fulham, unused. We got beat 5-0 and he still couldn't get onto the pitch. So when Moyes speaks about players taking opportunities, it's on you as a manager to give them opportunities to take in the first place and then reward them when they do. I don't think he does A and I don't think he does B out of those two things. It's on him. Now, I'm going to compare it to a couple of clubs. First of all, Newcastle are just as bad as us. Newcastle fans are furious with Eddie Howe at the minute because he doesn't make subs. Against Everton midweek and then against Spurs yesterday, they're struggling, not creating anything. So instead of making a change up front, he puts Isak to the left and Gordon into the bit. He just shuffles the same players around and the same things happen. So Newcastle fans are just as annoyed as we are in regards to the lack of subs. They have a lot of injuries, but it's because he keeps playing the same 11 every single time. Bruno, Sharp, there's no rest for them. Kieran Trippier doesn't get a rest. Livramento's been playing, even though Hall's been on the bench and could come on, he's not been playing him. So Newcastle, Moyes isn't the only manager frustrating his fan base with lack of subs is what I'm trying to say. But you've got the other side. Unai Emery, fantastic. Watching them against Arsenal, they're winning. He's not afraid to make subs. Ramsey comes on, Dendoncker comes on. He's resting his players practically. Now, it's not every game. The game previous, Manchester City didn't make a sub till the 85th minute because he didn't have to. But against Arsenal, he knows he's got fixture congestion. He's changing it. You look at Bournemouth, a side with high energy, making changes on the hour mark every game. Built at Old Trafford, away to Man United, they're winning 2-0 at this point, I think. Maybe 1-0, 2-0. It's a close game, they're winning away to Man United. He's still making changes. Billing's coming on. There's managers that's using their squad and there's managers that aren't. We're the ones that aren't. And I just find it like you're taking the piss a bit when you complain about fatigue when you're the one in charge of fatigue. Now, we get on to the big issue here, which is who can he bring on? Who can David Moyes bring on? Because there's an argument that some of them don't deserve to come on. That when you look at the bench, actually, do you want to see Fornals come on? Do you want to see Benrahma come on? Do you want to see Ings come on? No, I don't. But this is why it goes. This is the domino effect within the domino effect, which is, well, because of David Moyes, I don't want to see these players come on. A good coach improves players already at the club. I'm going to throw 3 at you. One I've already mentioned. Actually, 2 I've already mentioned. Postecoglou at Spurs. And the players I'm going to mention is the likes of Lo Celso, Bissouma. You go to Aston Villa, Matty Cash, Douglas Luiz, Ollie Watkins, Tyrone Mings, Newcastle, Almiron, Schär, Sean Longstaff, Yolenton. The reason I mention all these players, the manager has gone in. It's slightly different per manager per club. They've gone in. Those players are either out of form, they're not in the starting 11, look like they're on their way out the club. Their future isn't great. And they've all improved. Those players I mentioned have all improved. They're now big parts of those managers' plans. They're playing good football at the minute. Those managers have gone and improved them. Now, it's not every player. They haven't improved every player. You look at Newcastle, Eddie Howe with Matt Ritchie, for example. You look at Aston Villa, Unai Emery with Callum Chambers, Danny Ings, someone who's gone in and I don't want him, get him out the club. So it's not, he's gone in, he's not improved every single player or kept every player, but they get rid of the ones they don't want. Postecoglou's gone in there. There'll be some players that he won't use as time goes by at Spurs. But like I said, Lo Celso looked like he was on his way out in the summer. Bissouma struggled last season. Both are playing. Bissouma's a big player. Lo Celso's playing good football. Slightly different. But my point is, they use the squad. Eddie Howe doesn't per se, but he's improved the players so that they're usable. Unai Emery has a good squad available to him because he's using them, because he's improved those, because he trusts those players. Same with Postecoglou at Spurs, he trusts those players. Pep Guardiola at Man City trusts his players. Rico Lewis, inexperience doesn't matter. I'll trust you. In you go. Bob, on you come off the bench. I'll trust you. Maybe not Calvin Phillips. He doesn't trust him. He's the only one who doesn't get game time. But my point is, there's always winners and losers. But as a result of the management of this squad, we've got to the point where we have good players, but we can't use them. And this is where you have to put your opinion of how those players work at West Ham to one side, because if we're not going to use them, then they shouldn't be here. Danny Ings is the perfect example. It doesn't work in the system, so why was it here beyond this summer? But he's a good player. Ben Rama's a good player. Fanals is a good player. Maxwell Cornet, Teal Kerr, these are good players. They cost a lot of money as well. Sitting on the bench, and we almost can't use them because of what's happened prior. It's the domino effect. We've got to the point where these players are now unusable. Fanals, there's no point using him. He cost 25 million, was one of Spain's brightest prospects. He was fantastic under Pellegrini. He was fantastic under David Moyes as well. But his form's just gone off a cliff. Now, why that is, I don't know. Someone that I think emotionally probably just struggles with being a squad player. He either has to start or he struggles. I spoke to Anton Ferdinand about it. I said, is it a thing? What's it like as a footballer when you're only a squad player? Can everyone cope with that? And he was saying, no, it's absolutely a thing. The emotional side of it is important, and not every player can cope with being a bit part player. Fanals clearly can. But this is a result of the mismanagement. And it's not every player. There are players that Moyes has managed fantastic. Jared Bowen, for example, must love David Moyes, in my opinion. But for the ones that he has mismanaged, we haven't been able to use. And as a result, we've got a big squad. Someone in the review left a comment yesterday. It was fantastic. He said, we've only got 13 performers. I thought, what a fantastic way of putting it. Because we do have lots of players, but there's only 13 that Moyes trusts. And I think the word performers is a really good way of summarising their roles within the squad under David Moyes. And as a result, we're unable to rotate. As a result, we're unable to make substitutions, and the manager doesn't want to. And yesterday, I have to confess, I was frustrated with the substitutes yesterday. 3-0 down away to Fulham at half time. You might as well just pack it up. Just pack up and go home. At this point, you've lost the game. So start getting your players off. Pick the players you want to get off. And here's the problem. If I said to you yesterday, 4 players you're going to take off to rest up, who are you going to take off? The worst thing is we'd all have a different list. We would. Some of us would have Paqueta, Souček, Ward-Prowse, Soufal, Kudus, Bowen. Those players, those 6 players were thinking, maybe even a Gerd for some people. 7 players were thinking, actually, they need a rest because they played week in, week out. They need a rest. There's too many to choose from. There's not even an obvious 5 players. But at half time, he took off the 2 players that are fresh, Crespo and Fernando. He took them off. And then he put one of the players he put on. Now, I agree with Mavropanos going on, by the way. I agree with that one. I don't agree with the tactical switch, but in terms of personnel going on, I agree with that. I get it. But he brought in Emerson. Emerson, who's too unwell to start, is suddenly okay to play 45 minutes. We're 3-0 down. This guy who's not 100%, Moyes decided we're going to play him. And come 90 minutes, Kerr and Cornet still couldn't get onto the pitch. We made 5 subs yesterday and they still couldn't come on. Moyes speaks about opportunities, Fringe players taking them, but he doesn't give them any. And as a result, he has to use the same players all the time. Now, I understand why he played. I don't like how he set up in regards to midfield, but I understand why Paqueta, Bowen, Kudus, Aguirre, why Zuma, why they play Thursday, why they play Sunday. I've got no complaints whatsoever. I wanted to see them start. Oh, but one of those. I wanted to see them all start. Because I feel when it comes to rotation, a lot of us focus solely on who starts games. But what we don't focus on is who gets subbed off. And I think the ability to make 5 substitutions in a game is tremendous. You can sub half of the outfielders. I think that's a wonderful asset to have as a manager, and some managers utilise it really well. Ours, as well as Newcastle's, doesn't. And I find it hard to stomach when they complain about something they've caused. I think that was the case with yesterday when David Moyes was complaining about fatigue. You've caused it. And it's only going to get worse. We have a hell of a lot of games coming up, and it's got some really difficult fixtures as well. And he's got to sort this out, and he's got to sort it out months ago. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and disappear. I didn't even get onto my rant about no cover for Edson Alvarez. I'll save that for another day. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it. Subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. Catch you in a bit.